So Stan, as our resident malware analyst, it seems like you've always find interesting bits of malware to look at, and it sounds like there's a really interesting one that's just come out. So what can you tell us about it?
Yes, actually it's a story you helped point me to in Ars Technica, summarizing an adversary group called Platinum. Now, no one knows where Platinum hails from, but they were first covered, I believe, by Microsoft in a very pretty amazing and detailed write-up maybe in 2016. Well, now Kaspersky has attributed some new malware called Titanium to this Platinum APT group. So what's so special about this Platinum malware? One of the things that I find very special about this malware is just how complicated and intricate it is. So the malware authors have figured out how to split each part of the infection into separate components. Each component by itself, you could say, is not really malware. It just launches the next component in the chain. So some like AV vendors may classify it or misclassify it or not classify that piece as malware or as anything malicious at all. It might just be like a downloader or something that makes DVDs or something like that. But they've combined all of these different pieces, and with these different pieces have pretty much created a pretty complicated C2 infrastructure for getting commands with lots of like encryption and making sure that you know the password and everything like that. Like security researchers can't figure that out. And then you get a picture. And inside the picture are hidden commands for what to do. And what to do is very simple. It's actually very usual things for a Trojan, and they do it in the same, they can have similar functionalities. Actually, this Ars Technica article pretty much outlines it. Getting files, uploading files, executing commands. It's probably used in some sort of operations. Now, what I think both Kaspersky and Microsoft have highlighted is that this Platinum group, the group that employs the Titanium malware, they seem to be targeting a very specific region, so Southeast Asia. Apparently, they use a lot of different lures that have to do with politics in the area that would probably appeal to people in that region. And one other very interesting thing about this Platinum APT group is they have access to a lot of 0 days. So a lot of things that they're deploying are basically previously unpatched vulnerabilities. That was true in 2016, and it seems
not
like
just unpatched, like unannounced.
Unannounced,
yeah.
That's right.
Unknown.
Unknown, exactly. That's a very, very important point. So that makes them highly capable, obviously, of being able to discover all these vulnerabilities, but also it seems like highly organized in order to be able to know the right capability to use at which time, not using it before it's ready to be used, kind of holding things back. So it's not like a regular hacker who might go and say, hey, look what I found, or a regular security researcher. These guys are looking for these vulnerabilities, it may appear.
When someone puts a huge amount of engineering effort into malware, it stands sort of above and beyond the stuff that I commonly see. So it's interesting, and you learn a little bit every time you see something like this. They're kind of burning their tricks at that point. If someone takes it apart and learns all those tricks, you can defend against it. You can kind of get ahead of the game, because eventually a lot of these more sophisticated tricks get rolled into a more commodity malware. So you see something like this, it may not be targeting you, but you're learning something about what is possible.
I think one of the things that resonated the most with me about how complicated this is a line from the Kaspersky write-up. It basically says, hey, we couldn't even figure out how the shellcode, the original shellcode, started execution. Wow. So it shows you how complicated it is. I know Kaspersky is actually very good at what they do in terms of reverse engineering and being able to get to the root cause. So for them to say something like that after having analyzed the piece of malware, I think that's telling, and that's revealing of just how dedicated this Platinum adversary is.
Mm. So it sounds like highly resourced, lots of technical skills, willing to burn multiple 0 days in a single backdoor, nation state, or at least someone with a significant budget and staffing?
Definitely. I mean, who knows if it's nation state or not, but definitely it's a persistent group. They keep going after specific areas that they're interested in, and at least according to Microsoft and Kaspersky, it doesn't seem like they're very well detected, probably because they have these separate components. So it's likely that they'll be around for a while. just how APT groups are, very persistent and very advanced.
The other question I wanted to ask is, you were talking earlier about the malware itself being broken into individual components, no one of which is sketchy enough to be detected as malware. And that sounds to me like they're trying to evade some sort of risk-based scoring or like heuristics, so that if you're scanning with your malware engine, it's something they've never seen before, they'll take certain components of it and say, well, it uses these following libraries, and it touches a file on disk in this way, and it does this thing, and it reaches out to this thing. And they sum those up and say, okay, at this point, there's a threshold, and I say, yeah, malicious or not malicious. But I don't think they would ever do it in conjunction with like 3 or 4 different processes running at once, right?
I think the bad guys have figured out how a lot of different detection capabilities work, and it's exactly what you say. You know, when you take one sample and you run it through, just like you said, Matt, it'll find all these heuristics and say, yep, they're all bad together. But if you start taking those and splitting them up into separate executables, separate pieces, then it can create, I guess, it won't let the score be added up. And again, the same thing with even the forensics. You know, if you found something and it looks kind of sketchy, but you're not sure, the software is kind of pretending to be possibly legitimate. It by itself is not doing anything. In fact, some of the pieces are like encrypted, so you can't even open them unless you have the previous component. So if you haven't found the previous component, you know, having access to this one won't help you.
In this case, don't get the malware, and how you don't get the malware is you don't click on suspicious links, malicious links through email, because that's typically how sophisticated malware like this is going to be delivered. Don't go to suspicious websites and download things and run them on your computer. That would be your best bet.